Hi, and welcome to CAD 2. Today we're going to be talking about dimension styles. In order to have dimensions on your objects, you need to decide some things about how you want your dimensions to look. If we go up to the Dimensions menu bar, we can drop down and go to Dimension Styles. We can also go to them by going to our Annotation window in the ribbon and going to the Dimension Style Manager. As you can see, there's a standard style created, and here you can see a brief preview of what that standard style will look like. It's going to have the arrows going to the outside first if there's text and arrows that won't fit. It's going to have 4 decimals of precision, and it's going to have the text in the middle of the dimension lines. It will also do the closed arrowheads, and it will have extension lines coming out and meeting your arrowheads. If we want to do something new, we have a couple of options. We can either create an entirely new dimension style. We can modify the existing dimension style, but you want to be careful about that because if you modify the standard dimension style, you will no longer have that standard one available. Or you can temporarily override something in a dimension style. For example, you could change it, and then the next time that you go back and reload the program, that override would disappear. Today we're going to talk about how to create a new dimension style. So I'm going to click on New. I'm going to start with the standard style. If I had previously created something and I wanted to base it off of that instead, there would be a drop-down menu available and I would be able to click it. I'm going to call this dimension style 3 decimal, and I'm going to say use for all dimensions when this style is chosen, and then I'm going to go to continue. Now it gives me an option of changing all the different items in the dimension style. For lines, we typically want to leave them by block or by layer, and we're going to leave the baseline spacings basically with the standards for now. And then we have the ability, if we need to suppress either one or both dimension lines or one or both extension lines. Mainly this is useful if you, for example, have 2 items that are going to be pressed up against each other and you only want to have one extension line. You could suppress the extension line on one and leave it on the other. Also, for example, if you had a dimension line that was going to be pressed up against another object, you would want to suppress the extension line because you don't want your extension lines to cover object lines. Next, we can look at symbols and arrows. You have the option of doing closed filled arrows, closed blank arrows, open arrows, architectural and oblique ticks, and then the different dots and boxes that you can use. For our purposes, typically we will use the closed filled arrow for the mechanical drawings, and we will use either the architectural or oblique tick for our architectural drawings. In this section you can also choose to alter your arrow size, although typically we're going to leave it at the standard and alter it via scale under fit instead. You can also have a center mark, or say you want no center marks, and as you can see it disappeared here, or you can say you want a center line, which causes it to go through all the way, which works if you have multiple circles that you need to show the same center point of. Then you have your dimension break size, which says how much of a small gap is going to occur before the dimension line starts from your object, and some items regarding arcs and the jog dimensions in liters like this. Next we have text, and you can control which text style you're going to use. Color, etc. we usually want to leave by block again. And then you can center things or have them at above, outside, justified, or below. And then you can choose to view them left to right or right to left. And you can increase the offset from the dimension line if you want to. You can align your text horizontally, which means that whether it's up above or horizontal or vertical, it's going to show left to right straight across. Or you can do aligned with dimension line like so, which causes it to face whichever direction that dimension line would be going. There's also the ISO standard, which is typically used in mechanical, and that is aligned with certain dimension lines and embedded inside of the line as well. I'm going to put it back to horizontal for now. Under fit, we can control things like if there's not enough room and you have to decide, do you want the text or the arrows to go outside first? Typically, we're just going to leave it with either text or arrows because it will choose the best fit. However, if you have limited space for some reason and you don't have anywhere for the text to go outside and you need the text to be inside, you could leave it with just arrows going outside first. Vice versa, if there's not enough room for the arrows but you have room for text outside, you could change that. You can also say whether you want your text beside the dimension line, or over the dimension line with a leader, or over the dimension line without a leader. And then there is our scale, and this is the spot where we will scale all of the dimension features together. So once we've figured out what the scale factor of our drawing is, i.e. how we're going to scale it in our viewport, then we can use the inverse of that to find the number that we want to do the overall scale of, so that our dimension, text, and arrows will look the right size in our printout. And this is where you would change that. And for fine-tuning, you can place the text manually if you need it to go in a very specific spot. And you can draw a dimension line between the extension lines if you need to for some reason. Under primary units, you can control the unit format, decimal or architectural, engineering, fractional, or scientific. You can control the precision. On this one I said 3 decimals, so I'm going to change it to that. And right here it shows you an example of what that change is going to do. And then you can change whether there are trailing zeros or not, and whether there are leading zeros or not. And I'm going to say to suppress the trailing zeros. So that means that if there's a number after the decimal and it's not going to have any actual numbers in it, the zeros will not be shown. Then you can control how you want your angles to look, and whether you want the zeros on those suppressed as well. Finally, we come to alternate units, which allows you to put in a different unit style. So for example, if we're normally using decimal inches, but we also want to include the architectural because perhaps there's going to be 2 sets of people using them who need different units, then we can do that, and they will be shown in square brackets to show that they are alternative. And then we can do the tolerances, which allow us to give a acceptable amount of variation in our object. Symmetrical tolerances have a plus and minus, which is the same amount that is acceptable variation. And then there is deviation, which is a plus above a minus, allowing them to be different if necessary. And limits, which gives you the top and bottom possible sizes. And then basic, which is just the exact number that you want it to be. Alright, that is all you need to know for creating new dimension styles. Thank you.